The movie Sideways was released to theaters in October of 2004. It starred Paul Giamatti as Miles Raymond, a failed writer turned English teacher who also happens to be a major wine nerd. The film, an adaptation from a book of the same name released earlier that year, follows Miles and his friend Jack, played by Thomas Hayden Church, as they spend the week before Jack's wedding in the Santa Ynez Valley wine country in Southern California. Virginia Madsen and Sandra Oh fill out the main cast as Maya and Stephanie, two locals in the service industry. While the plot mostly revolves around Miles' depression and anxiety following his divorce a year prior, and Jack's continuous quest to get laid before his wedding, it uses the backdrop of the Santa Ynez Valley well, and the film remains a favorite among wine lovers. Sideways is best remembered for two scenes. This one where Miles, just having learned that his novel has been rejected by a publisher for the zillionth time, and being denied a full pour at the winery's tasting bar, decides to take matters into his own hands with the spit bucket, and this scene, outside a restaurant where Miles and Jack are meeting Maya and Stephanie for dinner.
And if they want to drink Merlot, we're drinking Merlot.
Oh, no, if anybody orders Merlot, I'm leaving. I am not drinking any fucking Merlot!
This became the most notable line from the movie, and once these famous words were uttered, the popular perception of Merlot took a serious hit. Or did it? Well, kind of? In 2009, Sonoma State University conducted a case study looking at the 3 years following the release of Sideways. The study found that over that period, the sales of Merlot did indeed drop by about 2%. Not a huge drop, but still a drop. During that same period, Pinot Noir, the wine varietal that Miles waxed poetic about for nearly the entire movie, saw an increase of about 16%. While the sales of Merlot didn't tank following Miles' rant, they certainly didn't experience the same boost that other wines had at the time. So, what did Miles have against Merlot? How did this grape get such a bad reputation? Was this reputation warranted? Are wine drinkers still taking a pass on this varietal? In this Bev Geek video, we're going to take a closer look at Merlot. First, some background information on the grape. Merlot is a dark grape variety that hails from France's famous Bordeaux region. While it is grown throughout Bordeaux, it is more prominent in the northern right bank area, where it forms the backbone of the famed red wines of Pomerol and Saint-Emilion. While Merlot's roots are in France, it makes its home around the globe. It is the world's second most grown grape variety and can be found in nearly every wine-growing country. Italy, Spain, Chile, and Australia all grow significant amounts of Merlot, as does the United States. The wine powerhouses of California and Washington state lead U.S. cultivation, but states that grow Merlot are as varied as New York, Ohio, Texas, and even my home state of North Carolina. It can grow in a wide range of climates, from the warm mountains of Mexico to the cool plains of Canada. Wine from this blue grape, whose name is thought to be a variation on the French word for blackbird, also has a wide range of flavors and aromas. While it typically exhibits cherry and plum flavors, with medium body and moderate tannins to balance out the fruitiness, darker berries, chocolate, and earthy flavors can also be present. Merlots can be smooth on the palate, or they can have brighter acidity. They can also hold up well to barrel aging for oaky and vanilla flavors, as well as creaminess brought on by malolactic fermentation. So, how could such a versatile wine gain the wrath of Miles? The movie itself doesn't shed much light on this. Miles does spend most of the movie extolling the virtues of Pinot Noir, the light-bodied, cool climate red wine that Santa Ynez is known for. He actually had more to say about Cabernet Franc than he did Merlot.
I've come never to expect greatness from a Cab Franc, and this one is no different.
The only time he even mentions Merlot during the movie is during the tirade outside the restaurant, which weirdly comes 22 minutes in the runtime after he says...
I like all varietals.
In fact, Miles' prized bottle of Cheval Blanc 61, that he's drinking at the burger joint at the end of the movie, is a Merlot Heavy Bordeaux blend from Saint-Emilion, a fact that 5,000 people on the internet have already pointed out. So the movie itself is no help. What about the source material? To see if the original novel adds any context, I decided to give it a read. By which I mean I got the audiobook and listened to it while driving home for the holidays. I'm not much of a reader, alright? I can't say that I'm a big fan of the novel. Without the acting talents of Paul Giamatti and Thomas Hayden Church, the book versions of Miles and Jack were not very likable. The book, like the movie, was mostly about Jack trying to get laid, or as Book Miles puts it, going from point A to point F. However, the book did place the spit bucket scene near the end of the novel at a very crowded wine festival, so it served as the emotional climax of the novel, where in the movie, it happens with a quarter of the runtime left to go. The I'm not drinking Merlot scene is also there, but it's not nearly as blunt. The way Book Miles puts it,
they're not going to order Merlot. They're way too hip for that. And if they do, I'm splitting.
There is a sequence in the novel which didn't make it to the big screen that does shed some light on Miles's disdain for Merlot. At a wine tasting in Los Angeles before the trip to Santa Ynez, a woman at the wine shop remarked to Miles that the Merlot on the tasting lineup was her favorite, to which Miles characterized Merlot as
a quintessential blending grape, which left to its own devices almost always results in a bland, characterless wine.
When another patron later commented to Miles that he should reevaluate the pleasures of Merlot, Miles responded with,
I'm not going to journey from the sublime to the pedestrian for a phone number.
Underlying both the book and the movie are the prevailing attitudes about Merlot at the time. In the early 90s, French researchers Serge Renaud and Michel de Longeril released a study that explored why mortality from coronary heart disease was significantly lower in France than it was in the United Kingdom and the United States, despite people in all three countries consuming similar levels of saturated fats. The study, titled Wine, Alcohol, Platelets, and the French Paradox for Coronary Heart Disease, postulated that there was a connection between moderate consumption of red wine and the reduction of deaths from heart disease, as red wine consumption is far more common among the French than their British and American counterparts. Later studies would challenge these findings, but at the time, the French paradox led more people to take an interest in red wine, particularly in the United States. One of the big benefactors of this red wine boom was Merlot. This French grape made for some fruit-forward, easy-drinking wines in America, which sold well in that market. More and more Merlot was planted, and more Merlot was made, and as the industry grew, the quality suffered. By the time the aughts rolled around, most Merlots outside of France were viewed as being cheap and bland or total fruit bombs. This was the state of the wine market when the movie Sideways hit theaters. While the text of the film itself doesn't spell out the source of Miles's antagonism towards Merlot, the context of public perception filled in the gaps. In return, Miles's tirade gave voice to an audience already inclined to be disparaging of the grape. So we all know what happened in the wake of Sideways. Wine sales increased, Pinot's popularity took off, and Merlot became the butt of jokes. As this wine declined in popularity, a lot of mediocre Merlot producers dropped out of the market. But this backlash was ultimately a blessing in disguise. Once the herd of Merlot producers was thinned, those that remained had to work hard to reinvent the varietal. When a vine is stressed due to dry growing conditions, the resulting grapes often produce better wines. So it was for the entire Merlot industry. After years of uprooting Merlot vines, acreage of it grew in California every year from 2010 to 2017. In 2016, 12 years after the release of Sideways, Merlot became America's most preferred wine varietal. And today, excellent Merlots can be found around the world, both as high-end expensive wines like those found in Bordeaux, but also quality, affordable wines that provide great value when compared to Pinot Noirs and Cabernet Sauvignons. To see how the current crop of Merlots stack up, I picked up a few bottles to try out. These came from a variety of different regions around the world, and while they all had their foundations in berry flavors, they all brought something very different to the table. This one, Santa Alba from the Central Valley in Chile, was a bit funky. It had a bright Bing cherry flavor, but also had some herbal qualities and even a small hint of green pepper, which is unusual for Merlot. The next one, Powers from the Columbia Valley in Washington State, tasted more like raspberry with a little bit of oak and a hint of truffles. The Trefethen from the Oak Knoll district in California's Napa Valley was very rich and creamy and had strong blackberry and vanilla flavors. And finally, the Château La Mothe du Barry, a 100% Merlot from Moulin in Bordeaux, France, had dark cherry and mushroom flavors, but with some good acidity. This one wine grape, grown in different areas and handled by different winemakers, led to vastly different wines. All were fantastic, and none of these were tremendously expensive. Even different Merlots from different parts of the same state can be vastly different. On a recent trip to California, I picked up 3 Merlots, one from the Central Valley, another from Napa, and yes, even one from Santa Ynez. Their flavors range from plum and floral for the Central Valley Merlot, cherry and chocolate for the one from Napa, and raspberry and smooth for the coastal Santa Ynez wine. Given the state of Merlot at the time, Miles's attitude towards it was probably justified, but times have changed. Merlot has made a comeback, but in many ways it never went away. France continued to put out quality wines with the grape through this whole period, and producers in the rest of the world have stepped up their game and are making great Merlots that won't break the bank. The next time you see a Merlot at your local wine store or behind the bar, instead of saying,
I am not drinking any fucking Merlot!
Keep an open mind and give it a try. Thanks for watching. I'd like to give a shout out to the folks at Seaboard Wine for helping me with this video's wine selection. Did you like the video? Let me know by clicking the like button. Do you want to see more videos like this? Click subscribe and the bell icon so you'll be notified when new videos are released. What are your thoughts about Merlot? Have you had any good ones lately? Do you think they're still too flabby or uninteresting? What is your favorite beverage? Let me know in the comments. Thanks again, and I'll see you for the next Bev Geek video.